Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Some and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important to the messenger. First, let me start off by saying that, yeah, go ahead and hit that Cash App button anytime during this Jet Black Airways flight or at the end before you leave the Jet Black Airways aircraft. I do not request that any of you press in any large amounts that would set you back. I'd much rather that most of you enter in smaller amounts because, as I've stated, it is the notification sound from the app that motivates me more than anything. Now that we got that out the way, and that's largely because Doors don't like it. I'm going to state that tomorrow, the Black Manosphere Show of the Week is going to be about the funeral of Black love, but the eulogy of the Western Black, well, the funeral for Western Black love and the eulogy for the Western Black male. Do not panic by the second half of that. Before I get there, though, I'm going to state something about specifically the educated lame. And this is something that Sergeant Willie Pete got me to thinking. Now, SWP, I have stated on my end that, yeah, Islam is going to be the solution for oppressed people in general, and that it would include Black people. And I know that that's not an appealing message to most of the masses because, as I've stated before, see, Black men don't realize our own strength. For whatever reason, we don't realize it. But we actually, and a lot of people don't realize it, but we do have it. We have strength we don't realize, but we got it. I don't even fully understand the secret to this strength because I know that if we don't athletically train, then we're not athletically inclined. I saw a recording from about 4 months ago, but it was a YouTube video in which a Japanese man said that he does feel that the full-blooded Japanese are at a disadvantage when it comes down to representing Japan in the Olympics because obviously some races have genetic advantages like Africans. And therefore the Hafus overrepresent Japan disproportionately. Now, he went on to say some other things that were more positive, but he said that this is something that can be a sore spot for him or others. Now, another man said, I do not accept that Hafus represent Japan or represent us as Japanese, but that he doesn't want to mistreat them. He just doesn't take them as representation. I guess I get it. I mean, you know, a few years ago, there was pretty much a consensus among a lot of Black people that I cannot represent Black folks and should not even call myself Black. And that's without me putting my face up. By me saying that I look racially ambiguous. Some used to say this years ago. At this point, I don't see myself as a representative. I never did, really. I mean, I'm actually the only Black man that probably actually looks like a gorilla. I don't see this in others. I see that apes and human beings generally do resemble each other, but in terms of Black men who actually look like a gorilla, it's just me. So I can't be a representative in many ways because I'm willing to actually behave like a damn gorilla so that other folks will learn to appreciate others of my people more. They can deal with me or they can deal with you. And you certainly look more human than I do. But when it comes down to the classism and the culturalism, and I mean behavioral classism, more so than I mean financial classism. Well, SWP, I'm not saying this out of hatred, but when you talk about the ELs needing to put in the work in the gym and learn some game, fuck your process. They are right when they say that Western Black women require too much goddamn game. Bruh, why are we calling it game in the first damn place? Because the Western hyena bitch wants to be deceived. That's why. There is no other reason. She wants to be tricked and deceived at every turn. That's why it is that when you are a negative stereotype, then she wants you to nigga swagger over, talk all smooth, and make promises you can't keep. Well, yeah, baby, you know, for you, I'll pick my knuckles up off the ground. Meanwhile, he doesn't even want to drag his knuckles when he walks. He just knows that's what it takes to get her. It goes back to her. That's it. They do require too much game. And then when you are not an idness, you're not a negative stereotype, you're not a knuckle dragger, then you're automatically an educated lame. Like F the spectrum in between. And you've talked about this before. There's a spectrum. But F the spectrum in between. If you are not that swagger and itness with the tats and the baby mamas and the prison record, then you're an educated lame, nothing else. And then you need to sit up there and wait, then come later and make promises you're not supposed to keep. I'll raise the babies. I love them like my own. You're a queen goddess, mother of the earth, and you're just as valuable today as you were the day that I first saw you in chemistry class and I liked you. When you had no stomach and no kids, but you still had those titties. That's not okay. So with all due respect, the process for us and for our own good, fine. But F the process when it comes to sisters. We have every right to actually say to sisters, no, you take us as we are. Should we exercise? Sure, I'd recommend that for anybody. And I think the American educational system is a goddamn problem, because it actually does overload you academically and then underwhelm you physically. It crowds so much. If you take your learning seriously and you take your grades seriously, then you have to give up so much time just studying and reading books that you don't really get to move around much. That is the fault of the educational system. I would agree when it comes to that. But by the same token, I also want to state that for us, because women actually do get to control most of reproduction and birth, they naturally get a lot of control over these things. We have to admit that the Western sister has chosen to reproduce and carry to term on behalf of the men that should not see this, that should not be granted this genetic immortality. That's something that they have chosen, and they've chosen this as a culture. And you and I saw the same pathologies in the golden sphere when it started. Even before they really called it the name golden sphere. I remember 2020, we were hearing about this. 2020, that summer, you and I were talking with a non-black man in light-skin motivation, and they were blaming you and blaming me for stuff we did not do, did not say, did not mean, and things to which we were not referring. And they were just on that whole respectability politics, white conservatism bullshit. And Anon, if you hear this, fuck you from the bottom of my black heart. Because when I think about it, Anon, I was trying to be nice initially because I saw you was trying to be a loyal friend. But you know what? No. Light-skin motivation was disingenuous, and she knew it. And that time I went up on a panel and I was largely silent, it was because I was letting other people talk, because I know I talk a lot. You later on said, and you had to come up on the panel, you had all this time to say something, you didn't because you a bitch. No, you a bitch. I don't care how much time you served in the military. And if you're going to say, well, you can come to California, kick my ass. Well, I have openly stated that I got bad sinuses and a bad back. So I'm not talking about anything physical before you take it there. And I'm not going to take an international flight to do that either. But the point I'm making is that no matter what kind of military training you've had, you actually are one for psychological reasons. Nothing physical about which I know. I actually admired your loyalty to light-skin motivation as a friend. The problem was that, see, at some point you had to realize, no, you were actually just making up shit. And Fran Brown came and pointed that out because she looked it up. And the Golden Sphere got on Fran Brown for trying to tell us something in particular. And it's one thing to say, well, you seem to be obsessed, but you know what? But if we can't prove you wrong, then we'll just suspend judgment until some proof comes out. Then later on, it came out Fran Brown was not obsessed about a particular person. She had receipts, and the Golden Sphere never apologized to her for it. She was owed an apology she never got. And everybody was like, even after they saw that she was right about who she was talking about, they were like, yeah, but see, that was really obsessive. But she was right. She was trying to tell you, don't let someone come along who ain't you, represent you, and dictate to you. And I knew that there was something wrong with that person she named because the person sat up and said to me, Black Mind, I didn't even know you had kids. Oh, Black Mind, I remember you saying that unfortunately they came out light skinned. Wait a minute, which one is it? You didn't know that I had them, or you remember me saying something? I mean, granted, that was literally a quote, but I was talking about a particular mindset that I would have had years before the kids were born. Years, I mean, when I wasn't even in that would have been the mindset I would have had before I was even an adult, before I became a dad. And I thought that was pretty obvious from the context. And so, you know, Anon, you and Light Skin Motivation, y'all were on some bullshit from the very beginning. Makes me wonder who the hell y'all were working for. And SWP was absolutely right when he and when Selector J said that you can't have a golden community like what you want, where light-skinned people who prefer each other can get together. And I stated, and Selector J stated, in Trinidad, you know how far away that is from the United States. And Sergeant Willie P stated, we all three stated that even if a sister prefers lighter skinned brothers, she's not going to pick one to be her open and obvious mate unless she can justify to her friends, to the sisterhood, why she's using that man. Because it's unpopular to be seen out in public with lighter skin, especially ambiguous looking black men. We stated that, and now Abby has come out and said exactly as much. When I answer the question, if you're a sister that actually does prefer lighter-skinned brothers, even the mixed-looking ones, you could conceivably get them, but it's going to be difficult because they have to be validated. We would have to be validated equally to how we have seen our more abundantly melanated brethren being validated. They've been pursued. They've been even chased. They've been stalked. And Sergeant Willie Pete, you who talked about the process, even stated how when you were in grad school, told this lady from the Caribbean, you were trying to get at her, and she was trying to actively pursue another man from one of the islands. She was getting him tickets. Now, what I'm saying is that she was willing to get tickets, make financial sacrifice to woo this man. And she's not wrong if she liked him. And you accepted that. But the thing is that, you see, that's an effort that they're willing to make. So we're seeing that Western sisters, not just American, but Western diasporan Anglophone sisters will take steps to get at the men they want. And so when I said to Abby that these lighter-skinned men and mixed-looking men are going to have to be validated to the same extent, and what it means is they're going to have to be able to get away with the same stuff. That's the cold one there, because how these brothers going to prove it to themselves and how these sisters going to prove it to these brothers. That is going to be a really difficult one right there. But it's real. It's true. That's a necessary step. These brothers going to have to be able to get away with the same stuff they seen other brothers get away with. But when I stated that, Abby, to her credit, said, okay, I got to work on that because I never validated a man in my life. But what I want the rest of you that I've addressed to understand, SWP, you got to understand this too. You've known it, but you got to remember this. And others in the black community and in the offshoots of it, like the golden sphere or the golden community, so to speak, have to realize something. And that is that in Nigga America, and I meant it like that, sisters have been taught and told to not validate men, but the same ones teaching and telling this will turn around and validate the men they want on the condition that these men meet negative stereotypes. The only non-negative trait for which they can justify validating, meaning pursuing and even chasing a man, are those of physical appearance. And even then, those are physical traits that are associated with actually negative behavior, stereotypically speaking. So to me, these are not negative traits like the abundant melanin and the muscles and the height and the bald head and the beard. These aren't negative traits to me, but to the sisters, they're still negative traits. To the women that will validate these and feel they can justify that by stating these traits to their friends is why they're validating that man, they're still negative traits. To me, they're a phenotype. To the women, because, you know, Western sisters believe that you can determine and predict a man's voluntary behaviors by his involuntary phenotype. These are actually behavioral. They might as well be behavioral traits. That's one thing that we've actually seen it. We who are not necessarily educated lames, but we who are simply not negative stereotypes have seen this. Watched it and observed it. And so no, F the process. Learning to be smoother in manner and simply more stoic and calm, looking out for our health. These are things, they are good things to do. And generally speaking, a lot of adults will make time for these things when they realize the importance of them. And they're adults and they don't have to spend countless hours studying in their rooms and reading to make some grades. Hell, I left the car with my wife in the city in which we used to live and work. For what reason? Left it there because I can walk to work and I can walk back. Mind you, Riyadh is hot and it's getting real bad now, but generally speaking, I can do that. And frankly, I'd say by I think the morning and evening temperatures will get a little bit more manageable even by August. I can walk in about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. I can do that. The high now is above that. It just so happens I got a car right now till my wife gets back into the kingdom from the vacation. But most of us will take care of our health. Generally speaking. Matter of fact, black men generally are the last ones to want to neglect our health. And Shahrazad Ali talked about this. She said 30 years ago that when she wrote the book about eating a proper diet, that it was a men that said thank you, and the women were like, they gonna eat what I cook. Well, when have sisters ever said, you don't have to buy the food for the house, I'll buy it and cook it? They never said it. Never did. So what these sisters are pretty much saying is, you're going to give me the money to go buy the food. I'll buy it, bring it home and cook it, and I'm not going to bring home nothing healthy. F that. Chitlins. Because I like me some stank food. Imagine that you are actually clean, you practice good hygiene, and you brush your teeth, but your house smells like boo-boo all the damn time because you done cooked chitlins. I love me some chitlins. How? Imagine that. Wasn't brothers that was on that stuff. Brothers wouldn't walk around talking about some, yeah, man, but you got to have me some chitlins so the house will stank all the time. Because that's authentically what it means to be us. Brothers wasn't doing that. Shahrazad Ali blew the lid off that. So no, I'm here to say that the so-called educated lame, the non-stereotypical black men don't need to respect that process because let's be honest, I'm not saying black women aren't worth that process. I'm saying that the Western sister is not, unequivocally. I don't apologize for saying that. She isn't. You take a lady that's decided to be honest and somewhat introspective like Abby, and she said she never validated a man a day in her life. Well, let's look at why that is, because she was taught not to. Now, to her credit, she said, okay, I got to work on that. So I'm not knocking her, but what I'm saying is that she showed us that that's what the teaching is. Don't validate men, even though the women that say this will validate men for the most frivolous of reasons. It's a dysfunction, and it is it makes the Western sisters not worth the process. And we already know that they're not SWP. We know that she ain't worth the process because, as you stated, and we've all seen, they don't demand the same thing from white dudes. I'm not sure to what extent they dropped the swag requirement for non-black men. I'm not sure. But when it comes to the Wyatt, they dropped the swag requirements, and they've been dropping them for a long time. And that's why when I've seen sisters with Wyatt men, they ain't necessarily been the Wyatt men that were swaggering trying to be like us. Those Wyatt dudes would have to chase sisters the hardest. I'd have to really work at it. But if you're just going to sit up there and be like Nick Fuentes, just show up on the paddle, say the N-word with the hard R, and they'll hug you. That's what that's been. And we've seen this for a while. And I know. I know. See, I've actually tested it out when I was in middle school to a certain extent. I mean, as a joke, I remember telling some sisters I didn't know I was from somewhere else. You're just stringing them along. But then I began to notice that they were interested. And I was like, wait a minute. They're kind of cute and they're interested. They don't seem, whatever happened to this pattern that I've already noticed, that if they're cute, they're less interested. That's not happening here. Then after a few minutes of, telling them a fake made up story about one of my experiences before I got to America, I said, you know, I'm joking, right? What? Yeah, I'm joking. Because you asked me, how do I say this in my language? I came up speaking English. We from here. My dad's from this state. My mom's from that state. I was born here. Now, we had a good laugh about it. This is middle school. But understand that interest, that was gone. And I ran that experiment first as a joke because of what they asked me. But then I ran it just for about maybe another 90 seconds. I don't know. Wasn't that long, but I ran it just to see something. And then I forgot about it. Didn't think about it too much later. But I did realize at that time that being something other than black in their eyes made me more interesting than being black. So, see, once they knew that I was just a light-skinned brother, then all of a sudden I got to be a basketball star. Soccer don't count. Swimming don't count. None of that count. I got to be a basketball or football star. Rapping wouldn't have even worked back then. Oh, no. Maybe being, street. That would have worked. It's got to be that. You understand? I've been seeing this for a while. But I didn't realize how widespread and how normal it was and how much it was not changing with the age of sisters. So no, SWP, F the process. For a Western Wyatt or sister, F the process. Screw that. And six, the Brothas got work done. But even just from getting the work done, you can look at the individual traumas through which he's been. And if a black man has been through these traumas, it hurts his chances with sisters. But she's been through these traumas and it ain't hurt her chances with brothers. That's because we too easy. And we were trained to be. Same way sisters were trained to be too difficult. We were trained to be too easy. Now, who the hell taught both lessons? So no, when we look at sisters and we're like, you know what? We want these other women anyway now. No, that's a good thing to tell sisters, as long as the brother ain't lying. And a lot of times brothers don't say that, but I know some who do. And I realize that's something sisters need to hear. Because CSWP, for the first time in my life, a few weeks ago, I saw a guy that I know is my age. I'd actually met him in real life long time ago, but he can't remember me. And I don't expect him to. And then I had to work in one of the records offices, and I had to transfer his file from one location to another. And I saw the name, and he's the only one with that name. He's from Lafayette, Louisiana. He's married, married to a Colombiana who's not obviously black as far as we know. Doesn't look it. He is, he's now being treated very well, and he's happy with her. She's not, you can tell from photographs and a few moving videos. She's, and I can only see so much. I'm only allowed to look at so much. Oftentimes she's in bathing suits, and I have to scroll past the story and keep on going to the next story on the platform. But from the bits that you can see, or where they're getting on elevators and things together, or walking into a restaurant, and the thing is that you can tell that she does act like a lady, and she treated him so well that she re-imprinted him. And he's my age. This man now does not want black women, and he's telling the black women in his hometown this. I don't want you. Yes, I want her to have natural hair, and no, it can't be 4C like yours. The reason SWP is because the sisters in his hometown trained him like that. The thing was that it took a while for him to find out what they had done. When sisters do what they do with brothers, they leave brothers open to being re-imprinted, because we can marry more than one woman. We're polygynous. Usually 2 is a good number for most men, 2 wives, but we can do that. We can love more than one woman. That's the end of it. So she re-imprinted him, and I've been re-imprinted, meaning I adjust to another woman. Got married. That failed. I can't marry nobody else like I had actually turned down. After my second divorce, I was introduced to a lady that looked like her in one of the photos. I was like, oh my God, this ain't gonna work. I had to tell the lady I couldn't proceed, and it wasn't her fault. She wasn't my ex, but I knew I was gonna see my ex looking at it. I was like, no. All right, we're gonna cut that off. We're gonna stop that right now. And I just told her that, I said, when you asked me why the first marriage didn't work out and all that, and you know what, you made me think about it, and I got to do some work. And then, sisters, they believe that when you say you got to do some work. What really happened a few days later, see, something was chipping away at my memory. What really happened is a few days later, I began to remember. A few days later, something triggered my memory. And I could recall 2001 sitting with my colleague at a phone company, and her telling me I shouldn't be trying to even date black women. I should be looking to date outside, because ain't no attractive black woman with nothing going on for herself, or even semi-attractive. Just no black woman with 2 other options than black men gonna treat me the same as she treat other black men. She was the one that told me, she's like, you just ain't it right now, black. It ain't because of nothing you did. You can't make that impression on a black woman that you were to be treated equally. You'll never be dark enough for that. But a few days before that, it was trying to come back to memory until something triggered it. And so really what was nagging at me was more related to that. But the point is that I had to tell this lady, and I knew she and I wasn't going to work, because when I saw her photo, she looked like my first ex-wife. My first ex negatively imprinted me. Now, we communicate for the sake of the daughters. She's not disrespectful. I'm not either. But sometimes when I hear voice notes from her, my blood pressure rises because of the memories. And she's not even doing that stuff anymore. I mean, she ain't trying to come back, but she knows she upped up. She knows that. But the voice alone is a trigger. So that can happen. In SWP, this happened to this man here. In all honesty, that damn near was the case with me when I married the North African. I was treated well. That was most important. And when it didn't work out, which wasn't her fault nor mine, the fact still remains that I was really having a difficult time talking to any American sisters. The guy that introduced me to my second ex was trying to introduce me after that. He knew that the divorce wasn't my fault, or he didn't know if it was the wife's or not, but he didn't know if it was my fault or not. And that was his aunt-in-law, his wife's aunt, the second one. But he was like, look, you did what you could. You did something heroic. That man told me you did something heroic because she was a widow with kids and you married her. Anybody in the society would look at you and say you were a hero for that. And I said, even though I'm a divorced ex-husband with my own kids, even with that, he said, yes, even with that. So when she requested a divorce, she knew she was making herself single all over again. She knew she wasn't doing that. She gonna cry in the car. And he respected her, but he was pretty much telling me, yeah, when it comes to that, she gonna cry in the car. He didn't know that the government had been a big problem. I didn't know at the time. Her government. But I'm saying that to say that he introduced me to some others he knew. And two were Americans. One quite plain looking. The other one, you know who she kind of resembled? Six defrauders. Kind of, I mean, and that, and she was a New Yorker, you know. She was one of them pretty New York Muslimas. Covers her hair up, but she's got to always look as fashionable as possible. So the hijab's not quite on point according to any Islamic standards. A lot of makeup on, cumbrella eyelashes. Yeah. I wasn't supposed to know about this because she never sent her picture to him to send to me. She saw mine first and said, wait a minute, is he even black? I only date black men at that time. Date. She was Muslim, but she ain't supposed to be talking about that. But what she was pretty much saying is, she said to the guy that introduced us, only black men. Why are you sending me his picture? He was like, that's a black man. He's just light skinned. He's from, he's Creole. He's a stereotypical looking Creole. She's like, I don't believe you. Don't send him my picture. So he didn't. After he passed away and a bunch of us were taking up a collection to send to his widow, that's when I saw her. And he said to me later, yes, the best looking one is the one that said not to send her picture to you. And I was like, oh, damn. And that was what triggered my memory, because when you're dealing with American sisters, SWP, the better they look, the more up the attitude is. But the thing is, they don't even have to be all that. And they got them jacked up attitudes. Talk about Sixth Brothas' attitude for a change. She got work done and she got attitude. She's just like Mariah Mills in that regard. Mariah Mills got work done and she got a nasty attitude. And people said Mariah Mills makes nasty movies for a living. But she got all this attitude when it comes to Zion Williamson because he won't commit to her and wife her up. Bitch, you a porn star. I'm the one that's got more problems with what she does than she does. But according to her own rules, she did what she was there to do with Zion Williamson. She was supposed to do that. Bend the uck over and do all that freaky stuff. That's what it was. F a commitment. By her own rules, not mine, by hers. She got all this attitude. I'm going to release a tape and I want this, that, and the other. How about you fuck the shuck up? And here goes 6, the fraudist. Bro, she got attitude. And yes, attitude makes them look worse. That's proof that brothers aren't only stuck on looks. We're taught to be, we're told to be, but it really doesn't work that well as it was intended to. Which is a good thing. So when brothers looking at 6, the fraudist, and they can see the fraud and it makes her look worse, that's a good thing, SWP. Give brothers credit. No, she got work done. She's in a pretty good shape, but the attitude is up fuck. She laughed from the bottom of her gut aggressively and hatefully because a black officer got drugged by a car. Because, I don't know, at least one of his parents ain't ADOS. That laugh was not one of amusement. It was one of anger. She just wanted to hurt that man. She got attitude, I don't know how she fit her head through the door. I didn't know what she looked like until recently. Heard you talk about her a good bit. Y'all brothers need to admit that she's nice look. Well, I mean, she could, yeah, maybe she is. What I saw was cute, but artificially. I mean, in all honesty, if I'm going to be with a woman that's going to have that kind of work done to be in that kind of shape, I'm still going to pick one with an attitude, with a nice attitude. And one thing I know is that when women get work done like that, when Western women get that kind of work done, they don't have a good attitude. They get the work done, not even really so that they can, they're not even doing it to keep a husband. They're doing it to get attention from men so that they can have a more upped up attitude and get away with it. That's why they do it. They want to be arrogant. That means it's already in them. They just want to somehow be able to justify the arrogance with some fake titties and a fake booty. That's it. Or a lipo. That's all that is. That's what we're facing with. We're facing some serious psychopathy in Western sisters and in Western white women too. But most of us ain't trying to get with them like that. It exists, but it ain't that common. So no, fuck the process. Them bitches ain't worth it. And the individuals amongst them who might be worth it are silenced. And that's something that Black Agent told me. Black Agent sent that. He sent something to me. Screenshot. You all can check out, I think her name is Mona D. And she has a post in her community tab about why it is that good women aren't saying as much about the ratchet bitches of the West. And she put up a summary and after some comments. So in summary, she put a list up. Read it. Shout out to Black Agent for sending me that. Assalamu alaikum. We don't owe it to them to go chasing them and trying to find out who they are. So they've been subdued. And we ain't going to realistically find them and meet them. So they exist. I give them credit for existing, for being how they are. But nonetheless, we can't find them. Even they are making a serious mistake. And that is they're following the teaching of the ratchet bitches, which is don't compete for these men. Don't validate them, which Abby showed us. Abby doesn't want to be one of them ratchet B words. But she was taught don't validate and don't compete for these men. Well, it was the ratchet bitches that taught this to her. And she fell for it. But when you stop and think about it, when she stops and thinks about it, when I stop and when you stop and think about it, we realize that ratchet bitches are competing for the men they really want to land. And they the main ones telling good women, don't you get out here and validate these men. 6 the fraudist ain't no different. With her ex-stripper past and her babies, having a baby daddy, she gonna sit up and tell the next man he gotta send $1 million to her account to be with her. Nope, no. What the hell about your baby? Your baby daddy didn't have to when he shot the club up. But now that you done bought some titties, you won't sit up here and tell other men that they gotta send you $1 million. Man, shuck that fit. Your job, according to your own standards, is to dance and then pull your panties down and drain his testes. Not by my standards, that's fornication. No, by her own standards. But she wants to sit up here and be a picky hoe. There's no better way to describe it. She wants to be a picky ass 304. You know, I realize I done cussed no goddamn muck and futch on this one that I'm gonna pretty much have to put this on Odyssey. So if you decide you click the link for this one and it's taken down or something, go to Odyssey. It'll be there. and hit the Cash App there instead. But this is some showbit, man. So no, fuck the process. And bitches ain't worth it. And the good women are undetectable, so we can't find them. Hell, if we did find them, what are they going to do? Are they willing to actually come out and compete, which is easy for them to do? Are they willing to come out and compete? Nope, because they know that if they do compete, the ratchet bitches are coming with the straight razors. And I don't blame them for that fear. They're human. But if they want to talk about being adults, and even good-hearted women have minimum standards of bravery and courage that we men have to meet, but they also talk about gender equality, then damn it, they have to meet some minimum standards of bravery. Okay, well, you know what? So you're very well behaved, you're nice, you're respectful, but you still don't want a man to be a pushover, which is okay, which is normal. Okay, you got a minimum courage requirement for the man. That's fine. And you still are somewhat westernized in that you're not going to sit up and say, nope, my job is to actually submit and do what the man says. I mean, yeah, I can share gainful information, but my job is to follow that man. So you don't want to go that far with traditional conservatism. Fair enough. Gender equality. Get out there and compete. And if they're coming to you with a straight razor, pull a blade out on them. Take that risk. They might cut your face up, cut their neck up. F out of here with that. I can't do it. Look, and I'm going to say this as a nice guy, even women have to confront fears in life and have some courage. I have to tell that to my students right now. It's my first time teaching male and female students in the same room, face to face. And they've actually been very respectful of each other. I had to sit up and give them praise for this a few days ago. Thursday, I was like, hey, look, y'all have actually been real respectful. This program is a success. Y'all are behaving yourselves quite well. I appreciate that. Y'all aren't harassing each other. I've seen when you y'all bring your food, your potlucks, and I've seen how respectful you all have been to each other. I appreciate that. But listen, y'all got to keep this up. And when the next crop of students comes in, you're going to have to reach out to them and tell them to do the same thing so we don't screw this thing up. Now, next, moving forward, I got lady students that they get all scared. I can't stand up and read this in front of the class. Fuck the shuck up. Get your ass up here and say what you got to say. Been their classmate for 3 months, 4 months, now it's 5 months, and you scared to stand in front of them and read 3 or 4 lines. Get your little narrow, scary ass up here and do it. I got to sit up here and be a drill sergeant with some of the female students. They're in a professional setting. They don't get to give in to their fears all the time because they women. They ain't got to act like men, but even women that are feminine have to confront fears. They're still adults. And I think we've made a mistake by letting some of them women call themselves girls. I'm in my soft girl era. Bitch, you don't get one. You're too old for that shit. You can be in a feminine woman era, that's fine. But you don't get to be no soft girl. Even if you soft, you're going to be a soft woman. Them days of being a girl are over. Shuck that fit. That's what we got to start telling them sometimes. Even when they're nice. Yeah, they deserve good treatment as long as they can give it back. And I'm talking about them because they're the ones that can give it back. But they don't get to sit back and simply say, I will confront no fears in life. I will not be an adult. If you ain't going to be an adult, damn it, we ain't having sex. And if we ain't having sex, why the F should I marry you? I got to take care of you, but I ain't supposed to pull your panties off. Matter of fact, you know what? No, you pull my drawers off. Oh, no? Okay, then we ain't getting married because you're still a kid. We don't do that. How about that for steps in the process? And that's talking to the nice women that nobody has come along and told, listen, you still got to be an adult. And you're going to have to go through some kind of hard times with anybody or by yourself because that's life, not because the guy is a failure. Who's going to sit up and tell them that? Not these simp-ass dads. Seen that too. Now, baby, as soon as that man doesn't have a certain amount of money in life, you know that man is not being responsible. Man, how about you shut the fuck up? Her mother had to go through hard times with you when y'all got started, and it wasn't your fault or hers. And now because your daughter's well behaved by comparison to the wicked witches of the West, which ain't saying much, you now want to tell her she's a princess and she don't deserve to never have to go through no hard times ever in life. And any man she's with at that time needs to be left. And he should never find anybody else in his life either. That's because you a nigga simp. I got daughters too, and I love them. And that's exactly why I had to tell them, you are going to go through some rough patches with any guy or by yourself. You take your pick. Because God ain't going to sit up here and give you no easy ride. He doesn't do that for most folks. And if you're Muslim, he really ain't going to, because you're standing on the truth. So you got to get tested more. That's what I'm supposed to tell them. And did. Their mom ain't like it much, but I mean, whoop-de-doo. That's why she ain't got nobody. I hate to say it, but hey, you know what? Even then, why not say it? I don't hate her, but the point I'm making is that we got to be militant, SWP, because, and not just as educated lames, but we got to be militant as non-negative stereotypes, man. Because most of us are somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. Watch a little Star Wars, watch a little Star Trek. Watch a little Superman, get out there, play some basketball, play some baseball or something in the neighborhood. Finally buckle down, get to your homework. You hate it, but you trudge through it. But this subject is a fun one, so, you know, this is going to take me about 15 minutes. Most of us were somewhere in the middle, but we wasn't no niggas. What about them? Process applied to them too, because they got to compensate for something? Bruh, if you ain't the negative stereotype, you were expected to compensate as if you are Urkel. That's what the process is. Fuck the process. If any of the Western women, white, black, or anything else, are going to sit up here, and usually, I'll just tell you what they're actually doing. Instead of if, here's what they're actually doing. SWP, we've seen this. Maybe it changed since I left, but what I saw when I lived there was this. SWP, white Western women are the hardest on white Western men. They start off like that. That's why they got the same complaints that we do. They got the same complaints about Becky we have about Sapphire, but we don't have them about Becky, and they don't have them about Sapphire. Because Sapphire's doing the same thing. She's hardest on us. Maria's doing the same thing. She's hardest on Hector. And the women that are of Asian origin but raised in the West, oh my God. They don't have podcasts talking so bad about Asian men, but when you ask them, they will say, they're not really men, and their dinglings are little, and it's, bruh, even in Japan. You can ask a Japanese woman in Japan, so you like foreign men? Yes, I do. Okay, so is there anything that you dislike about Japanese men, or you just have a preference? Well, Japanese men got a little, and I saw that with my own eyes. I mean, it was translated, so I can't guarantee you that's what she actually said in Japanese, but I saw. So, I mean, if that's happening in Japan, you know what's going on in California. Well, they're not really my type, and I just don't find them attractive. I remember being on when I was in high school along the Gulf Coast. My second to last year of high school, I remember there was an event with all the high schools together, and it wasn't athletic either. There's a lot of them. And guess what happened? Know what it was? I was in a conversation with somebody about how when folks mistreat you, you've got to protect your kids from those folks. That means you don't marry them. I said that. And it was a Asian girl, and I didn't even ask her nationality. And she was like, yeah, but I don't like my own. I was like, what is it about them you don't like? I just don't find them attractive. She didn't say nothing about them being too patriarchal, too controlling, too old-fashioned, nothing like that. I just don't find them attractive. This was in the 1990s, early 90s. The difference is this: since these groups are not our allies and our friends as a whole, they can sort this out on their own. We're going to talk about us. That's why I discuss us. But I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I don't know from firsthand that they're dealing with something similar. Now, what may be the case is that, white women actually have sat up and talked about men in general, but they're talking about white men. Sisters done talked about men, but they're talking about black men. Latin American women and Asian women might talk about men, but they don't single out their own men. That is true. They don't single out their own men. White women talk about men. It's understood. They talk about white. Latin American and Asian women talk about men, but they don't single out their own men. Sisters, they're singling out black men when they talk about men ain't fit, men ain't this, men ain't that, and then the other on Oprah. So that's where the difference comes in. We are in a unique scenario in that regard. But the fact remains, sir, that we're not in a situation in which dealing with Western women at all is going to really be that conducive to what we want to build. We can't build with Western sisters. They won't allow it. And you mentioned that yourself. It's going to take some things that they ain't going to deal with. They ain't going to tolerate. They'll demand it, but they ain't going to tolerate what these things require. And unfortunately, that's what we do. We sit up and human beings in general would like to be able to demand a finished product while refusing some of the necessary ingredients. We'd all like to be able to do that. What is different is that Western white women will demand to do that. They'll demand to do that. But they largely do that with their own. And sisters do that with us. But it's insulting because sisters have said, oh, we're so race loyal. We're just so race loyal. Even white women didn't claim to be race loyal. They just, the white women would either just be that or not. But they didn't go claim, I don't deal with these. Unless she was a foaming at the mouth white supremacist. Barking and growling neo-Nazi. Get away, nigga. Burr, 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 burr. Get away, nigga. Unless she was one of those types. Sieg Heil, get away, nigga. She wasn't sitting up doing that. Sisters, we up here just stand up, putting, waiting on you. And no, you couldn't get these other cats. That's what it was. Now we understand you couldn't get them because you've been trying. You've been trying to sneak past around us to get them. But you're trying to get a commitment and that ain't happening. SWP, I saw that back 2017, 2018. When you and I didn't know who each other were. I saw that. I'll never forget. Sandra. And her first name, like Sandra Bland, her first name starts with a B and ends with a D. Maybe I should call her Sandra Blonde for comic effect, but no, Sandra, I remember her. There's another guy on YouTube, Bo Ladola. Shout out to you, bro. Assalamu alaikum. Bo Ladola knows what it is, man. Because he and I work together. He knows what I'm talking about. He might not remember her real name. He and I both know the guy that was smashing. There was a considerable age difference between them two, by the way. And he was not the older one either. Oh, man. If she was in slightly better shape, we would have called her a cougar or a MILF. But she wasn't in that kind of shape. I mean, if anything, I wanted to make fun of him for laying down with her. But the thing was, he didn't know that I knew he was smashing that. For a while. The other thing too was that I wanted to make jokes about him. When he finally said something about it, I wanted to make jokes. But the thing was, at that point, right after he said it, somebody else came around and I was afraid they might have heard him. But in any case, I'm going to tell y'all straight, man, look. I tell you, SWP, she was one of them, you brothers need to stay with sisters. And Obama won the office because we voted for him because he had a black wife. It wasn't just him. It was Michelle. She was one of them, right? She was one of them. She's the one to whom I wrote the letter telling her that I knew firsthand that light-skinned brothers were not first choice. Now, this was also how I knew that there was an age difference beyond what she was admitting. I knew that because she couldn't conceive of light-skinned brothers being at a disadvantage. Couldn't conceive of it. She's like, no, that never happens amongst black people. Yeah, it does. I could tell you when it started. She was just too old for that, and that's all. She was already too old for that by the time it started. All that meant was that she was an adult, completely an adult by 1990. That's what that meant. So here she was, saying all this stuff about brothers need to stay with sisters. And I said to her, so how come sisters ain't got to stay with brothers? Well, we can't get with these non-black men like that. They ain't picking us like that. She admitted it. Then I later find out that a black admix, a Blendian man. He was a Blendian South African, right? Black and Indian. A little bit. I think he had one Zulu ancestor 3 generations back, if I'm not mistaken. She didn't know about his black blood, but he's smashing her. So under the 1-drop rule, she could have said, well, that was a brother, but she didn't even know. She didn't know about his 1-drop. She just didn't know that I knew he was smashing. And that's a problem. I take issue with the deceit, the lies, the duplicitousness, and that's exactly what it was that light skin motivation engaged in the whole time, talking about, well, we do like light skinned men and they have a chance and all that. Come to find out, she married to a brother that was abundantly melanated. And that's okay for her to be. She should have said something from jump. You and I know she could have said, well, he and I got married before we knew anything about all this. She could have said that and people would have been like, okay, so that's kind of grandfathered in, you know? No, SWP, you and I saw that. I mean, later on it came out, no, she married to an abundantly melanated brother. She probably, at some point, she had to give him choosing signals like, yes, it's you. Yes, it's you. At some point, she had to say, you know what? Pull your underwear off. Shoot the club up. At some point, that's what it was going to take. How she became mom. I was up and making excuses for her because she was a mom of an infant. And I know the sleep deprivation does make you a bit dumb. Come to realize after a while, it's like, wait a minute. That's beyond sleep deprivation. That's just being duplicitous. At least say, look, there's a good reason my husband's abundantly melanated. Tropical, brother, but there's a reason for that. At least say, no, she ain't even do that. Didn't have the decency or the nerve. Instead, she just want to sit up and tell MLS men, no, y'all making this stuff up. We do like it. No, maybe you like us, but you ain't going to validate us and actually choose and pick us and treat us equal. That's when you do like us. So how the hell are we supposed to know when you do? Because you're going to act like you don't no matter what. Because socially you have to. Because you know you're going to be questioned by the sisterhood if you pick and choose one of us. And the only justification you can give to the sisterhood when you pick and choose one of us is, girl, I'm getting this, that, or the other out of this. And that usually has to be something that implies you're using the man. You cannot sit up and say, girl, he got that. You can't even sit up and say, girl, he got that banana. He got that eggplant. You can't even say that because they ain't going to believe it. They ain't going to believe that unless he goes into making films about that stuff. Then they'll believe it. Then you can justify, well, girl, you should see. Let me show you this video of him with this porn actress. Oh. Maybe then. That's how far it is. You and I knew this, SWP. She knew this. She was lying about it. But she didn't learn that from the golden gynocracy, SWP. She learned it from Nigga America's culture. That's where she learned it. And now we're dealing with a scenario, and I know because I'm seeing it too. Shout out to Passport OG. You talked about this. I know because I'm watching this. Now we're dealing with a scenario in which, unfortunately, this Nick culture is leaking. And it's bad. It's leaking again and again and again. It's going into Japan. Passport OG saw it. And that's not the only place. Hell, it leaked into Trinidad. That's how Selecta J wound up having similar experiences as MLS men in the United States. And he was able to share Facebook posts to prove it. He wasn't making it up. I saw it. I forgot the name of one of the girls. Her name, but it was something Paris. Trini woman said, I'm talking about, I don't F with, well, I might as well say, and I don't fuck with red men's no more. Them one act like them pussy better than mines. I'm like, God damn. That's actually more brutal than what sisters in the Gulf Coast used to say when I was growing up. They were trying to hide it because they didn't want us to know that that's what it was. Because they were so mean about gaslighting when I was growing up Gulf Coast. Late 80s, early 90s, especially early 90s. They were so into gaslighting even back then. I didn't know what the word was. But they were so into gaslighting as a whole that they didn't want to say something like that because they didn't want to let it slip. That because they knew that we would be able to figure out, damn, it ain't my fault. They didn't want me knowing it wasn't my fault. They didn't want me knowing that when they treat some other man great and they treat me badly, that it ain't my fault. That was the last thing sisters wanted me to know. And hell, in 2001, by that point, I graduated college. And when that colleague of mine told me that that's what it was, she even so much as said, they don't want you to know. They tell you, then you know it's not your fault. You won't feel bad about it. They want you to feel bad about it. They want you to feel guilty, like you always doing something wrong. You ain't doing nothing wrong. Hold the door open. You weak. You don't hold the door open for them. You stuck on yourself and you spoiled. You're not going. She's pretty much said it. Black, you ain't going to win no matter which way you go. Stop trying. Stop worrying about it. It ain't your fault. That's one of the most liberating things you can really tell any black man. And I'm sorry, but you know what? SWP, right now, the only message that is really accurate and needed for black men in the West is it ain't your fault, except that you were too easy. So fuck the process. Look, if you really don't believe that the dysfunction justifies what I'm saying, look at Cap. You said it. You're a black man, but he hates black men. You said that he hates black men. And it's because of his mom sicking, in a sense, as if they were nothing but attack dogs, black boyfriends on him. And she probably said to those boyfriends, go in there and whoop his little piss-colored tail till he does what I say. She probably said that. So they go in there thinking that mom's is sick and tired of him thinking he better because of his shade. Thinking that that's what her challenge is. They go in there, whoop his little narrow tail and tell him, get your little piss-colored ass in there and clean up what your mama told you to clean up. Oh, so, and you know, maybe I'm just guessing. He could say it, but man, in the end, it comes down to this. Captain Solo, from the dysfunctional culture of the folks from whom we came, learned to hate them because even for him, it's easier to hate them than it is to hate his mom or even be angry with his mom for her part in that. And maybe that's where I should end this, because when it comes down to what many men's own mothers did, I did not experience that. My mother tried. Now, she didn't understand what I would be trying to tell her, because both of us lacked the vocabulary to explain what we knew and to explain what we wanted to tell the other. But she tried with the vocabulary that was available at that time. She really did. And I was spared a lot of this. And my dad's sister had one conversation with me about this, but she didn't mince words. She said, we're going to act like we don't really want to get married, but that's the end goal for us women. And I'm glad she said it, because at some point I begin to realize that all of them want a commitment when they say they don't. The only time when they may not want a commitment is if you're really putting it down in the bedroom, but you also want a commitment. Then they won't. I had to realize that. If you want one, they might not. But if you don't want one, they will. Guaranteed. They want to take it all the way to the altar. But it's largely dependent upon you not wanting that. And that's the part that does make me angry. That's how I knew that when a lot of brothers' babies were aborted, it was because they wanted to have the babies. That's how I know these brothers ain't lying. They're heartbroken when they find out their babies were aborted. Others are heartbroken when they find out that these moms would not abort. Because these sisters were pretty much looking and saying, well, this is what the dad wants, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, he wants to have a baby. I ain't finna get this old weak, pathetic ass nigga no baby. He gonna be all geeked up. He don't deserve to have no babies. Because what she hears is, oh my God, I finally get to reproduce. That's what she hears. And then he's like, man, look, I ain't ready for this. What she hears is, I'm a stud, I'm a buck Negro, I'm a real man, I'm a real black man, and I ain't done slanging this dingling around yet. So don't tie me down. Because I got this Johnson other women want. So don't mess this party up. She's like, oh, I got him, I got him, I got him. They're judging by how much a prize you are, pretty much based on what you don't want to do. What that means, SWP, is that for these Western sisters, it is a prize to do what you don't want. What you don't want, the situation you don't want, is a prize to them. That's what it is. You can't go through a process for someone like that, and you can't validate them. Can't afford it. Sorry, but at some point, whether we like it or not, at some point, we're going to have to learn to look at someone like Six the Fraudist and see through what a lot of brothers already can. See through the intended effect down to the fraud. The fact that she calls herself a goddess at all, even though you're an atheist. As a matter of fact, yeah, that should, when I think about it, when she calls herself a goddess and you said you're an atheist, that should make her uglier in your eyes, sir. Not because of the shape, but because of the fake. I hope that what I've said helps out. Thank you all for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, black, heterosexual, non-select, educated lame, male power because they don't like it. And black patriarch until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying again with me on these Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with me till the wings and the wheels fall off. Don't forget to punch that cash that button on your way out of the Jet Black aircraft at the end of this flight. Gender, justice, forever.